Hey guys, this is Marianne Esau for EDL 851 Module 8, Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation. Okay, so the first article we read was Teacher Evaluation and Issue Overview. It started out by defining what teacher evaluation is, and the definition given was that teacher evaluation refers to the formal process a school uses to review and rate teachers' performance and effectiveness in the classroom. Ideally, the evaluations will be led to feedback that the teacher is given, and hopefully that will guide the professional development of that teacher. The evaluations are governed by the state laws, but operated at a district level. So each district can pick their own evaluation tools based on their needs. Systems have been changed over the years to help identify strengths and weaknesses as teachers. So evaluation is an issue for a couple of reasons. One, the quality control systems were ineffectual, and some teachers have had more growth in their students than other teachers. And so basing a teacher's effectiveness on their evaluation and on student growth is ineffectual. In 2009, Race to the Top was implemented. It offered grants to states that participated, and Kansas does not participate. Each state had to develop new teacher evaluation systems in order to participate, and one of the requirements is that each teacher is evaluated annually, which I think is a good thing, but not each state does that. By 2013, 28 states have required annual teacher evaluations. The new evaluation systems are now more complex, and I spoke to a veteran teacher in my building, and she talked about how the difference is, how it's so different now than it used to be, and how, she used to be evaluated once every 5 or 6 years, and it wasn't a big deal, but now it's a lot more complex. We have several different measures each year. The evaluations are more objective, so there's no bias, or there shouldn't be any bias on the evaluator's part. There's also weighted formulas to get the final score, so it's not just based on one evaluation and one different tool. Whether or not it's working, the article talked about having mixed reviews from the union. Is it unfair? Is it fair based on where the teacher is? That kind of thing. And quality feedback can help teachers, but I also think that teachers need to take their feedback and use it positively in order to become more effective. The next article we talked about, or we read, was Teacher Evaluations Heads to the Court, and it was just basically about several different lawsuits that have been happening in several states. A lot of the lawsuits and complaints have been on evaluation-based pay. And for me as a SPED teacher, I don't like that. I don't like my students' performance based on, or my pay based on their performance. I don't think that that's fair. Some lawsuits were based on tenure, and also New Mexico and Louisiana talked about how they challenged how the new system was put into place, and they complained about that and made a lawsuit. The states involved were Florida, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, Tennessee, and Texas. The last article we read was Teacher Evaluation NEA, and basically it just talked about the Every Student Succeeds Act, or the ESSA. The ESSA ended federal government's involvement in teacher evaluation, so it brought more autonomy to the states in that way, and it did require each state to develop their own goals and evaluation tools. But again, even though the state has its regulations and its goals, each district can choose their own evaluation tool. The ESSA preserves the rights in the states to develop their own tools, and also evaluation. It said that evaluation should be a partnership with the teachers and the administration, and teacher effectiveness should not only be based on test scores, which again I definitely agree with. In our district, or my district, we use the Marzano method, and we've talked about that in other modules as well, but just to overview, for us this is our third year in the district with Marzano, It is supposed to be a very objective measure, so regardless of who is evaluating you, you should have good inter-rater reliability. There are 4 different levels of evaluation. So your first year of teaching anywhere ever, you will have 2 formal evaluations, 2 informal evaluations, and 10 walkthroughs. And we'll go over what that means on the next slide. Your first year in the district, if you have teaching experience in another district, you will have 2 formal evaluations, no informal evaluations, 10 walkthroughs. And then your second year in the district, you'll have 1 formal and 1 informal and 10 walkthroughs. In your third year, you'll have 1 informal and 10 walkthroughs. And for us, the first couple years, we've had the teachers that are in their first, second, or third year have been evaluated, but also a third of the other teachers left. And so the goal is in 3 years' time, every teacher in the building will be evaluated every year. And there are 41 areas that they look for in Marzano, so it seems to be pretty overwhelming, but there are like 5 different domains that they look into, and they don't check off every single area, every single evaluation, but they focus on a few areas each evaluation so that overall, over the course of the year, you should be able to meet each of those areas. To define the evaluations, our formal evaluations are 30 minutes long. They are announced, so you as a teacher can kind of choose when you want that to happen. You're given several options, or at least I've been given several options and several days notice. The lesson plan is to be given to the principal 24 hours in advance. We do not have a pre-conference per se, but the principal can see what you're going to do and see if you deviate from the lesson. The lesson plan we use is just one that the district tells us to use, and it's not one that I've ever used before using this evaluation tool. After the evaluation, we do have a post-evaluation conference between us as the teacher and the administrator, and that needs to take place within 24 hours after the evaluation, or I guess one day. If it's a Friday, then it could take place on that next Monday. And we do have to sign off on the evaluation that we've seen it, that we've read it, and that we've had the conference. And the evaluation is supposed to be done by the 60th day of the semester. The informal evaluation is 20 minutes long. It is unannounced. There's no lesson plan, no post-conference, and you don't have to sign off. The principal will just come in, watch for 20 minutes, and then leave. The walkthroughs, there are 10 a year. 5 are supposed to be done each semester, and they are 5 minutes each. It's just a brief overview of a lesson. It's just kind of a snapshot as to what you're doing for that 5 minutes. There's no planning and no conference. And I found the walkthroughs to be kind of good, but also somewhat frustrating, because if you don't do something in that 5-minute time, but you do it right when the principal leaves, you still don't get counted for doing it. And so sometimes I think your grades can be a little bit skewed that way. The process for evaluation, we've talked about in other modules too, but for us, we have a pre-observation lesson plan for the formal evaluation. Again, we don't have a conference per se, but we do give a lesson plan. We get observed, and during the observation, the principal will look for those 41 different objectives, but if they don't see them, it's not a big deal. He or she will sit on their laptop in the room watching you and do the evaluation right then and there. And afterwards we'll have a post-conference, and again we sign off on that feedback, or on the evaluation. You kind of get instant feedback, so they will submit whether or not, or what they've done, instantaneously. So even before the principal leaves the room, sometimes you'll get an email saying, oh, you got this feedback. It's kind of nice that way, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can also look at your scores before you have the meeting, which I think helps too. So there are several things to do, if you think that you've been evaluated unfairly. The first thing to do is to talk to the principal. And I actually had to do that this year. We had a new principal, and so our principal last year scored all of us higher than our principal this year, and so several of us were kind of taken aback by that because you want to see improvement. After we talked to the principal, he just stated that it was his first year being a principal and he was new to it too, and just kind of was learning the process. And so once we figured out, that kind of that issue, it was a lot better after that. If you think it is really unfair, after talking to the principal, if he or she does nothing, you can talk to our union, which is United Teachers of Wichita. They're a great union, and they work really hard for teachers, and they would contact the principal as well. And if nothing else happens, you can talk to Human Resources if you just really think that you are being treated unfairly. If you are unjustly let go, and I don't think that this has happened in my district, or in my school at least, based on evaluation, but again, you go to the union, you talk to Human Resources, and for us, we go to our special ed coordinator, and then they can get involved, and then they can go to the higher up people as well. And if there's a real issue with leadership, then they would have to talk to assistant directors and directors of special ed and that kind of thing. The legal case I chose was Ahern versus King. It happened April 2014, and I chose this one because this is something that I think could happen in my district. Basically, the violation was that the state of New York did not take poverty into consideration when it came to student growth for evaluation. So the teacher was penalized that the students didn't grow enough, but they did not take in consideration the fact that those students live in poverty. And I think that can happen in my district because a lot of the people in my district do live in poor neighborhoods, and a lot of people in my school do live in poor homes. And I also think that, as a SPED teacher, that could be something, not the poverty, but the special ed needs could be not taken into consideration for evaluation. Like I said, the teacher was penalized. The decision is still pending. It's still in progress. So it's kind of going to be interesting to see what happens after that. As a future leader, first, in terms of evaluation, I would first make sure that I understand the process that I need to follow in the district. I like to get my work done early. I like to make sure that I do what I'm supposed to do. And so that's something that's very important to me. I will follow the guidelines given to me by the district and what I need to do in the timely manner. I was evaluated on the last day of the semester one time, and it was against my contract, and I just thought that set a teacher up for failure, and I would do everything I can not to do that. I don't want an evaluation to be considered an afterthought by a teacher. I don't want to rush to do it. And so I would make sure to get everything done in a timely manner and make sure that I do what I'm supposed to do. I would also do my best to give honest and open feedback. It's very important to do, and I think in order to do that, you have to make sure that you're not afraid to do that and not afraid to have people dislike you or maybe not agree with what you say. And the last thing I would do is I would make sure that staff members knew that they can come to me with questions. Hopefully being approachable and being able to articulate to them that I care about the students and that's why we're doing the evaluations, would allow them to come to me with questions, and hopefully I would be able to answer those questions effectively. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks.